All right. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon slash good evening, or whatever time it may be where you are. My name is JT Viper, and today we'll be discussing, or I suppose I'll be discussing with the chat if anyone decides to interject with their opinions. Somehow or other, there it is. There, I had to close my stream window. So, I had the chat up here, as you can all see. I will be engaging with the chat as it comes up, if it comes up. And but yes, today we'll be talking about the topic of different different revenue streams available to YouTube creators, the restrictions and implications inherent with adopting any given option, and some of the outlooks that I've seen from around the YouTube community regarding these different revenue options. Now, of course, to start off, there is the bare bones basic, zero monetization, just what I'll call a no tolerance policy. People who don't monetize their channels, don't do any kind of sponsorships, don't have an Amazon affiliate or the Amazon link or anything like that. They don't have any sort of compensation for what they do. They just enjoy making videos, so they make videos, put them out there, and what they put out is what they put out. They don't have a Patreon, they don't take PayPal stuff, no super chat, no nothing. Double negative. In short, the monastic content creators, if you will. Now, there's some ups and downs, of course, as I mentioned, to each and every one of these options, or the options that I'll be mentioning shortly. The ups to this one are, of course, that your creator, if you're following a person who doesn't monetize and is just purely doing it of their own entertainment, is not going to be, at least you would expect them not to be, influenced by any major corporations or anything really outside the realm of what they feel to be acceptable and what they, attach to their own public persona, and of course what the YouTube terms and conditions allow for them to upload onto the site. Now, this has the bonus, the upside of meaning that there's no real imposed bias or enforced content types, that sort of thing. No outside influence, if you will, aside from the factors that we would all, normally assume. So, what would my friends or family think of this if they're not anonymous, or yada, yada, yada. Downsides to this, well, a YouTuber who is of the, let's say, monastic type, who doesn't monetize anything and makes no income off of YouTube, will likely have less time, unless they are already, say, independently wealthy, less time to create YouTube videos, less time to engage with their viewership, and overall, potentially, again, setting aside the whole independently wealthy bit, less production value that may ultimately be added to these videos as time progresses, because they're not seeing any sort of a return on investment for their time, so why would they put any more money or effort into the system? Why would they pay out into something that's, not going to pay them out anything at all? Aside from, of course, the entertainment. Maybe they just like doing it. Maybe it's good practice for them. Maybe they want to go into short films and that. But the whole point is they're not making any money off of YouTube directly. I don't think there's anybody out there who have a problem with this type of person. I can't imagine anyone having an issue with this disposition as a content creator. Now, next one up is what I think would be one of the most basic. In the standard monetization, ads will appear on their video, say prior to, after, who knows what. Perhaps they put an ad break into the actual... My cat's destroying a... God damn it. There we go. Cat's destroying the side of a sofa. Sorry, folks. But yeah, they monetize their video. They may run, say, mid-roll ads, that sort of thing. But aside from the ads that YouTube places on the video, and then, of course, adhering to the rules and guidelines for monetized videos, there's no other outside influence onto what may or may not be published by your favorite creator. Upside to this, your creator is able to make some amount of money for the work they put in, depending on the amount of views they get, the amount of revenue impression or ad impressions that YouTube allows to be shown on their videos. As we all know, the algorithms and methodology for this has been very suspect as of late. The downsides to only going with monetization. Well, with going with monetization, you are again further restricting what you will likely put on the channel, although you may choose to just make videos that are not attempted to be monetized if you know the content won't pass the muster with YouTube. But aside from that, really, I don't think anyone perceives a major impact on a creator, at least not a negative one, for monetizing their channels. I think that's just a standard practice at this point that people have come to accept. They will install or not install ad block as they please. So then we move up. We'll go to a different one here. And the next standard step would be fan funding. Whether that is through Patreon or taking, say, tips through PayPal, they are allowing people to directly contribute to them, based on the content they've created and how the audience has responded to that. If they want to see more content, if they just want to, give the person something to say thank you or what have you for the time that person puts into making videos. Say, oh, I've enjoyed this. You know what? I would have spent this much money on cable or whatever. I can afford to throw this much in the pot for a creator that I support. Benefits of this is that it often generates much more income for creators than AdSense does, especially now with AdSense numbers trending down across the board. It allows creators to put more time and effort into their videos because some, as you know, will have managed to make a full-time job out of publishing YouTube videos. Preparing, researching, editing, recording, all that good jazz. They made a full-time career out of it. And so that really frees up them to invest back into the product, to invest into new editing software, green screens, lighting, new microphones, all that good jazz, all that great stuff. And that's really about the gist of it. It allows, as I said, the creators to be more independent. And it also gives them a buffer that if a video does get demonetized, they know that at the very least there's going to be roughly X amount of dollars there to kind of buffer them through their Patreon or regular PayPal subscriptions or regular PayPal tips. The downsides are, well, your content creator now may be somewhat more cautious. They might be more concerned about maintaining the image they've had as opposed to creating new content that changes with them with the times. They may not want to lose subscribers. They may have a certain preconception about what their Patreon patrons joined with them for, why they support them, and if I change this, will I take a major hit to my revenue? But again, I don't see that there's any major conflict in having a Patreon. Some people have different standards as to when it's acceptable to start up a Patreon account, whether it's X many subs, X many views on their channel, you name it, everyone's got a point at which they say it's okay, and then some would say, not all people say it's not okay. Some people are just perfectly fine with it no matter what. The point is 0. So you can start your channel, go ahead, make a Patreon. And I'm going to reserve because I think people might be asking themselves if they're watching this saying, well, Viper, what's your take on what is acceptable for a YouTube content creator? Because you're talking about these nebulous yous and content creators and viewers and so on and so forth. You're just kind of giving us these wishy-washy terms. And there's a reason for that. As I'd like to keep everyone thinking along just basic lines and not interject with too much personal opinion until we get to the end of my little list here, and at which time I'll be more than happy to delve into that. The next one up would be, let's say, affiliations. Not outright sponsorships, just affiliations. Items like the Amazon shopping affiliate. If you buy things by going through this link, the person that you purchased, the person whose link you followed gets a certain share of whatever that may be. We could contrast this with, say, users having Amazon wish lists and this sort of thing, but that I think it definitely falls more into fan funding. Fans giving the creator something as a way of saying thank you. It's not so much an independence thing because the creator may not have bought the item in the first place at all. It's just nice for them to have a certain item rather than to have not had it. Doesn't mean they can pay the bills now. It's not an expense they would have necessarily had. But that's an option as well. I know there's a number of creators that do that. But we get on to the affiliate one. Well, what are the stipulations here? Well, again, the person's going to have to maintain certain standards to keep in line with their affiliate offer, whether it's Amazon, whether it's any other company. So there's going to be slightly more restrictions. But again, we don't seem to see much backlash for creators who have these sorts of things. I know TJ Kirk, the Amazing Atheist, has had one in the past. I know these have been relatively popular. And I can only imagine that if you've got 1 million plus subs like he does, that every now and again, someone's going to be shopping on Amazon. If you're going to shop on Amazon, might as well do it through a link that supports your content creator. Why not? So again, I don't think there's a huge load of opposition to establishing that. Now, where we do start to see the pushback, is from functions like direct sponsorships, where people are doing sponsored videos. Now, here's how I see it. A lot of people, in my opinion, have misconstrued or misunderstood the difference, and what I would say is an important difference, between a paid advertisement or a paid endorsement and a sponsored video. And I will make this distinction here. A sponsored video is quite simply any video in which a user is paid to add some sort of reference to or bump of a certain product, service, so on and so forth. An example of this would be Lindy Beige. Lindy Beige has done a number of sponsored videos for both Audible and the Great Courses Plus, which I believe is a subsidiary of Audible. But either way, and I reference Lindy Beige for one very particular reason, in that your typical Lindy Beige sponsored video does not differ from the rest of the content that he publishes. He publishes neat and educational and informative and kind of quirky little history clips and analyses of different things throughout history, explanations of why, a platoon is a natural size for, a single combat unit, information about World War II tanks and all these other things, ancient battles, and I believe he was consulting on a graphic novel about Hannibal. He's got quite the varied range of historical knowledge, and he puts this all out through his videos. And the way he does a sponsored video is, start of the video, he goes, just so you know, this video is sponsored by the Great Courses Plus, or Audible, or yada yada yada. He goes, but more on that later. So you go, okay. Goes on and on and on, does the rest of the video, right? Somewhere around the, midway or end of the second third portion of, the second third of the video, he does the bit for whatever the sponsor is, whether it's Audible, whether it's the Great Courses Plus. You get the drift. Does the little promotional bit there saying, yep, you can do these things, da, 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 da. But I've noted that I don't think there's been too many videos of his where he has endorsed them. And now that's might draw some confusion for some people. They go, well, he's taking a sponsorship from them. He must endorse them. No, it's not true at all. You see, think of it in the way that a television network runs ads on, your favorite channels, which, knowing the demographic, you may not watch television all that much, but I'm sure you understand the concept. Now, stations will say, okay, well, we'll give you, X amount of ad plays in this time slot. There's no guarantee of what show, and that depends on the contract. But in many cases, there's no guarantee of what show it will be played during. But what you do know is the channel and your time slot. So you know what your rough demographics will be. As you can get that tailored down and down and down, you'll inevitably pay more to be placed with specific programming because, well, they can charge more. They can say, oh, it's more work for us to make sure that yours is the one playing in that slot, or, well, you really want this, so we're going to make you pay more for it, supply demand. But nobody would say that just because an ad for, say, Pepsi, dun dun dun, plays during an episode of Pawn Stars, that, well, Pawn Stars must endorse Pepsi. Now I understand, with a content creator, they have more control. They have the control over, what sponsorships they accept. But either way, they can still mention a product and place a promotion as written or a description of a product or service in the middle of one of their videos and not have it be a direct endorsement. This is a line that I think too few people either are capable of or willing to draw when it comes to content creators making sponsored content. A company may sponsor content that, I may not like the company. I may not agree with them. I may not, or I may just not like their product. It may just not be a thing that I'm interested in. However, if they were willing to sponsor me, I may say, this video has been sponsored by X, Y, Z. They do this, this, and this, and these are the features they tout, and these are the benefits they claim, and yada yada yada. If you want to get a hold of them, if you want to try their product or service, you can go to bingbangbboom.com, whatever. And nowhere in that will I have said I endorse this product, or I encourage you to buy this product. It could simply be, if this is something that interests you, this is where you can find it. Essentially, the company doing the sponsoring is just looking to have their product or service shown to a certain number of people, which they would estimate based on your views, your sub counts, so on and so forth. And they would have an idea based on your demographics whether or not they might want their product or service to be seen by your audience. Now, of course, if there is a product or service that you utterly disagree with, that you hate, that you are just like, no, I can't stand this company or whatever, to then advertise for them would be questionable. I think that's fairly acceptable. But if somebody has a neutral or positive disposition towards a product or service, and the company that provides such thing wants to sponsor their content, I don't see a problem with that. Now, I do believe there are some caveats. I do believe that if you're going to do a sponsored video, it should be made clear that this is indeed a sponsorship. You are not just simply happening to mention this product or service just out of sheer happenstance, that you are being paid to mention it, because people can understand advertising when they know it's advertising, and people can understand a sincere and honest and unaffected endorsement of something when they get that from someone. However, when you have things like sponsorships, they exist, it does tend to muddy the waters somewhat. So I would go by the rule that unless something is claimed to be a sponsorship, you shouldn't just outright assume that it is. But if a mention of a particular product or service is appearing in a video that normally the content creator doesn't mention, then I would be extremely skeptical, dun dun dun, of whether or not that was indeed a sponsored placement, a sponsored mention for that product or service. And I've heard a lot of people who think that sponsorships are just, not for them. They think it sullies them. It would sully them in a way to accept a sponsorship. And I was watching a stream by Sargon, and he had harmful opinions on. You may have seen this stream, you may not have. But Sargon says, well, I wouldn't do a sponsorship because I wouldn't want to sully myself in that way. And I think that this stance is very much an elitist one. Now, I have a great deal of respect for Sargon. I've disagreed with him on certain things in the past. Of course, there's never been any dialogue because I'm piddly little me. But actually, that's not true. He did respond to my one tweet wherein I questioned his statement in a M103 video, to which I got no reply after I explained to him what I thought his mistake or misinterpretation or mischaracterization was. So I don't know whatever the outcome was of that. That's hardly important right now. The point right now is that I think it's easy, frankly. It is very, very easy to say that you wouldn't sully yourself to make a sponsored video when you have the sort of Patreon numbers that Sargon does, or that you've had the AdSense numbers that Sargon has had, but now that's all falling. And he's mentioned himself that only because of, revenue from YouTube Red has he actually not taken as large a hit as some others. It makes me wonder what the circumstances would be if Sargon truly needed the amount of money that a sponsorship could provide. Would he be willing to sully himself in that fashion if it didn't mean compromising any sort of ethical principle, meaning he disclosed the fact that it was a sponsorship, that it was a paid spot in a video? Would he then be willing to dip to those lows? Would that be the case? He mentions, well, I'm happy. Mentions he's happy now. This is in a different stream. Uzalu, a number of others, gentlemen whom I can recognize his face but can't name him. I have terrible memory on this one. I think Louis Laveau was in that one. Anyway, they're talking about it. He goes, yeah, like, I'm not going to be homeless or anything. My son's not going to go without. I can't help but think, yeah, but what if he was? What if he was, and the sponsorship was the difference between you making rent and not? So, is it sullying yourself only because you're so well off, relatively speaking? I'm not claiming you're some, corporatized fat cat, but, you're definitely better off than plenty of other YouTubers that I've seen. And you've no doubt worked hard for that. I'm not making any claims against that. Simply reflecting on the fact that it's fairly easy to essentially be a Monday quarterback. Oh, well, I would have done this, and if I were in that situation, I'd do this, but you're not actually in that situation, and you can't fully understand it. That's just reality. So that's my take on sponsorships. I don't think they're inherently evil. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with them. I think it's wrong for people to do a sponsored video and not disclose the fact that it was sponsored. I think people are, for the most part, adults, and if we see that somebody is doing a out-of-the-norm placement of a product or service, that we're probably going to have the ability to look at that and go, you know what? It's probably paid to be there. And so that's going to factor in your decision whether or not you think it's entirely legit. Now, the next point, and this is where the distinction comes in, very, very important distinction, is between a sponsored video, okay, and a paid endorsement, a paid advertisement. The best example of this, and yes, I'm sure it will get up it'll dust up some dander on some folks, will have been Candid. You'll have no doubt come across this particular app if you've been watching this particular community for too long, and the various stances that people have taken on it. The videos that a number of creators put out promoting Candid were not what I would call sponsored videos. I just don't think that's entirely correct. I think it's poor nomenclature, poor phrasing. And yes, it may all be semantics, but in this case, I think the semantics of the issue are quite important. A sponsored video is a video in which you present content you would otherwise present, except somewhere within it you feature a segment that is, you mentioned, sponsored by XYZ Corporation, what have you. And now for a word from our sponsors, because you know what? You gotta keep the lights on somehow. However, when you get into doing a video that is solely to bump a particular product or service, you have now created an advertisement. You have now created a commercial. Simple as. This comes from somebody who has quite a few years now invested into post-secondary education in marketing and business management. There is a big difference between sponsorships and advertisements. You can pay somebody to create an advertisement for you, or you can pay somebody to wear your stuff, to use your stuff. You can sponsor something. Doesn't mean that the person endorses you, but it means that you endorse that person, or at least want to pay to be opened up to their audience. So example, Skeptic, Shoe on Head, Mundane Matt, whomever, makes a video about Candid. That is just about Candid, just about promoting Candid, whatever. That's it. There's no other content involved. Or at the very least, the preponderance of content, the majority of content, is not unique, is not anything other than a promotion. Oh, they might talk for 5 minutes about some current events, but they might go on for 10 or 15 about this wonderful new product or service. That would still, to me, be a commercial. We just happen to have a little bit of extra tassels thrown in on there to look pretty. If somebody does, like Lindy Beige is known to do, say a 10, 13-minute video wherein there's a 1-minute spot for Audible or the Great Courses Plus, that would be a sponsored video. That is a video that, yes, I have mentioned this product or service because I am being paid to do so at this point in my video. It doesn't affect the rest of the content. But when the advertisement is the content, I draw the line. I draw the line. I have no problem with making commercials. I just expect that people should phrase them as being a commercial. This is not a sponsored video. This is an advertisement for. Now, I'm not sure if I'm getting that out correctly, if I'm characterizing that in a way that people are understanding what I'm saying, but I do hope that I am. Because that's been a very, very contentious turning point that I'm not even seeing a lot of people mentioning as a differentiation. They're seeing all sponsored videos and all advertisements as being just sponsorship, sponsored videos. And that's not the case. All right. If, Cristiano Ronaldo wears Nike cleats during a soccer game, yes, he is sponsored by, he may be sponsored by Nike. However, the reason that he is out there on that field is not to promote Nike. It is presumably, based on his contract with the team, to score goals, win games, that sort of thing. It's not the primary focus. However, if Cristiano Ronaldo appears in a video like, say, Nike's Winner Stays video, where it's all about, promoting Nike gear across various sports and then different teams and such things, then yes, that's a commercial. That is a piece of material primarily made to push a product. All right. Sponsored video is a video that incorporates some form of advertisement in it. That is directly negotiated between the creator of the content itself and the product or service provider. An advertisement or a commercial is a piece of material that is designed to primarily, solely, or just predominantly push an product or service. There's the difference. And what are the downsides to these? Well, of course, the downsides to these are that people may not trust you for doing a sponsored video or creating an advertisement. If you do a sponsored video, and again, I remember the distinction. If you do a sponsored video, I have no problem with it. But any claims you make about that product, I will have certain reservations about. I will have my doubts, and I would, as I would anyway, do my due diligence in looking into a product or service before I actually decided to buy it or not. I'm not just going to blindly go out and pull the trigger on something and say, yeah, I'll buy that because so-and-so mentioned it. If that's the kind of person you are and you want to get mad at somebody for promoting something, you have bigger problems. You've got way more on your plate to deal with than the fact that somebody endorsed something. You got to worry about the fact that you're just believing what everybody tells you. If somebody, however, creates just a flat-out advertisement for something. Yes, Billy, that's exactly my point. I have a slight issue with that. See, that's where I think you compromise yourself a bit. You're just devoting time and effort to nothing other than shilling a product. Nothing other than pushing a product or service. And I understand it. That may be the difference between, making you rent that month or not. Perfectly understandable, perfectly acceptable. However, for that particular video, I will call the entire video's content into question because the entire content is just an advertisement. And I really don't get what it is that so many people have such a hard time understanding about that concept, about being able to differentiate between a sponsored video and an ad. Whether it's a 5-minute long video or a 30-second long or a 5-second long video like so many of the A&W ones were for so long on YouTube. If all it is promotion of a product or service that's paid for, it's just one giant commercial. I don't get what was so difficult to see in that. And I understand with things like Candid, there were all this stuff that comes out about the bot, about the AI that isn't technically an AI but rather an algorithm, but semantics, pointless semantics in that case. About this program they have to figure out what's okay and what's not and how to manage people. Yeah, I get that. And shit. I understand that it was being sold very much as a place to speak freely, not a free speech platform, which is 6 of one and a half dozen the other. And that there were questionable practices by individuals throughout this whole saga. However, do I fault people just for doing a piece of sponsored content? No. Do I understand that they may not be able to say certain things in a video if they would like it to be sponsored? Sure. However, if that person is deciding that they're going to take a sponsorship, I'm going to take what they're saying in that video, aside from that sponsorship, and apply the same rigorous examination to it that I would for anything else. Why is that so apparently hard for everybody else? In any case, I think those sum up the different levels. You've got your non-monetized, no monetization at all, YouTube AdSense through Google and whatnot, watcher or viewer incentivized, so wish list, PayPal tips, that sort of thing. Fan funding through Patreon and other subscription services. Sponsored content, wherein somebody makes a video and then at some point during that video sets aside a certain amount of time to mention a product or service. And ads, just commercials, making an entire video to bump a certain item, certain product. I don't really know how much further you could go with that, but my point would be that it is important to understand the difference between these various levels of incentivization to create or modify one's content, and to recognize that it shouldn't be inherently negative or inherently positive to be sponsored, to have sponsored content. Because, as I've mentioned, for many people, it will be the difference between keeping the lights on and not. Between having to choose between whether or not they pay the hydro bill or shop for groceries that month. I understand that those may be the differences. And in those cases, it might be smarter to say, hey, maybe YouTube shouldn't be your primary focus. But that's it. Life's just not always that easy. So it falls to us, the user, to take a look at the content creators that we enjoy and treat them fairly. I think that's the biggest takeaway here, because I see so many content creators almost scared in my interpretation to go anywhere near mentioning that they might be in favor of doing sponsored content. Making a video and accepting a sponsorship since this whole Candid debacle. And to all of those creators, I would say, go visit Lindy Beige. Because if I were ever to make it to a point where companies wanted to reach out to my viewers through me and have specifically target my videos and my content for sponsorship, well, I would want to present it in very much the same way as Lloyd does. Because I think that's a responsible way to go about things. I think that there's no shame in doing it the way he does. He says, yep, you're going to get the same old video you've gotten from me. The sponsors know this. They understand what content I do. It's all copacetic on our end. But at, 2/3 of the video, I'm going to do a quick 30 or second or 1 minute spot and just say a couple of things about a product or service that is sponsoring this video. Now, again, Audible, Great Courses Plus have been mentioned. I haven't checked out the Great Courses Plus, but I do use Audible. I would definitely do a sponsorship for them. I see no reason why not. I think I've got I put my phone here. I've got, I think I'm into one of the upper, second highest level for listening time. But it's hardly important. The point is I do use these things. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I wouldn't have a problem with endorsing it, because of course I use it. I wouldn't have a problem I would endorse this as a particular app. If it's something I do use and I do enjoy, then I would absolutely endorse it. Say, this is the experience I've had with it. This is why I like it. This is what I know of it. This is why I think that you might want to try it out. Simple as. I see no reason in doing a sponsored video for something I have a neutral disposition towards. Oh, it comes out later. You didn't know this, and this, and this, and this about the company. Okay, fair enough. Point was, I didn't endorse it. I just allowed them to have, essentially, ad space picked out specifically on one of my videos. Fairly simple. And yes, I'm 124 hours away from the scholar level. I've already hit newbie, novice, and pro. The whole wackadoo of badges. In any case, I think I'll cut this here before I hit 40 minutes and just leave you folks with the message of, if you have a content creator who is wrestling with the internal battle of whether or not to accept a sponsorship, consider directing them to this video. And consider imparting to them and carrying to them the outlook that creating a sponsored video is not inherently evil. Even paid promotion is not inherently evil, again, so long as it is put forward honestly. Saying, yes, this is a paid advertisement. That's all this video is going to be. Just a paid promotion of a certain product or service. This is what it is. These are the talking points. These are my impressions on it. And at that point, you can call everything you want to into question. If they say it's their own opinion, still call it into question. Because the entire video has otherwise been a paid promotion, why wouldn't that be? But if you're just talking about, say, I don't know, the different types of armor used by various armies during the Greek Trojan Wars, what have you, and then you do a short clip about Audible, well, I don't think that's going to impact your historical references to the material all that much. Hey, you may have gotten some information from the app. Who knows? Anyway, folks, hope you all have a great evening, great afternoon, or good night, whatever it may be, wherever you are. This has been JT Viper, signing off on a video, a word about sponsors, conflicts of interest, disclosure, bias, corruption, and all manner of things. Thank you.